Tonight, the biggest social media crackdown we've ever seen to protect children from trolls, bullies and pedophiles. A Sydney mother's desperate plea after her daughter was charged with murder. Exclusive new details following the discovery of Samantha Murphy's mobile phone and credit cards. New Zealand gets dragged into Australia's immigration brawl as the PM cops a battering. A chorus of tributes for the one-time voice of Sydney, radio legend Bob Rogers. And the childhood friendship that could ignite the blues to origin glory.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Mark Ferguson.
Good evening. For the first time, social media giants will be forced to reveal how many users are underage in major reforms aimed at keeping children safe online. Companies must put the best interests of the child first, with new measures to tackle the growing challenge of artificial intelligence.
It's a message to social media giants tonight. Australia expects more.
The harmful impacts of social media, particularly in relation to children.
This challenge to our way of life.
The government strengthening what's called the basic online safety expectations, now requiring social media to ensure the best interests of the child are a primary consideration, tougher controls on the use of AI to produce and share harmful images, and new powers to force companies to reveal how many users are underage. But even with growing calls for a 16-year-old age limit for social media.
Until these companies have effective age assurance systems in place, it's going to be hard to do anything like a ban.
The federal government now funding a trial of age verification, but the challenge isn't just technology. In the UK,
38% of parents have assisted their children in lying about their age to get to what?
To join social media sites before the age of 13.
I don't think it'd be different in Australia with those sorts of pressures.
Today's announcement saw disruption in Parliament.
The member for Fisher has been exercised right throughout question time, and he'll now leave the chamber under 94A.
I'm surprised that this is controversial.
I saw red.
The ejected Coalition MP says previous attempts to enforce age limits were ignored or rejected.
This government has been dragging the chain.
Paul Caddack, 7 News.
The mother of a woman charged over a murder in the city's east claims her daughter was acting in self-defence. Nikita Kirby is accused of stabbing her ex-partner to death earlier this week, but her mother says the alleged killer is also a victim.
Scott Wallace had just celebrated his 37th birthday. 3 days later, he was stabbed to death, allegedly by his former girlfriend.
It was either him or her.
31-year-old Nikita Kirby was charged with murder last night, but her family claims she was defending herself against a man with a history of violence.
She got bruises all over her body. Does a woman deserve that and just to put up with it? I don't think so.
An AVO had prohibited Scott Wallace from contacting his ex for 2 years. That order expired in October. Tuesday night, he turned up at her house and things became violent. Nikita Kirby was arrested a kilometre from the scene, drunk and confused.
Did he die?
A knife was discovered nearby.
This is self-defence, but
7 News understands Nikita Kirby wasn't the only person to take out an apprehended violence order against Scott Wallace. Several other people, both men and women, applied for AVOs across the state over the past decade. But Nikita Kirby is now an accused murderer who police allege intended to kill, a charge she plans to fight in court.
that's not right. It's not right that she's got to go to jail for something that she protected herself against.
Lucy McLeod, 7 News.
Police have revealed an umbilical cord found on the banks of a river in Sydney's inner west belonged to a baby boy. The cord and placenta were discovered by a dog walker near the Cooks River in Earlwood on Monday afternoon, with forensic testing now confirming the baby is male. Officers are still searching for the mother and her newborn son. 7 News has confirmed the mobile phone found at the edge of a Victorian dam yesterday did belong to murdered mother Samantha Murphy. It's a big breakthrough for detectives. The question now whether vital details can be retrieved to help locate her body.
Less than 24 hours after finding Samantha Murphy's phone, Detectives and cadaver dogs were scouring bushland nearby. They're trained to find human remains.
Ultimately, it's of great significance. Now, whether that has already come from data on that phone, it's interesting to note that it's a targeted search at that particular time.
Ms Murphy's husband Mick has confirmed to 7 News his wife's credit cards, licence and iPhone were uncovered in mud at this dam yesterday.
The ideal situation is you could fire the phone up and someone would have her PIN.
It's the crucial piece of evidence police had been hunting for.
It might be interesting as well to see if that device has any other location data on it that might help them retrace her footsteps.
It's not yet clear if police have managed to turn the phone on or retrieve data from its SIM card.
Bearing in mind that the phone possibly may have been submerged in water, we don't know how long for.
Worst case scenario is that the device won't boot and that there's nothing readable on the disc.
It's been 117 days since Samantha Murphy's disappearance shocked the nation, and with the prime suspect still refusing to cooperate, investigators have been waiting for a breakthrough. Finding her mobile phone has re-energised the search. 22-year-old Patrick Stevenson is charged with Samantha Murphy's murder. He's due back in court in August. Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
Thousands of litres of a potentially deadly date rape drug destined for the streets of Sydney have been confiscated. A federal police and border force blitz has led to the seizure of 4,200 litres of bute, an industrial chemical used to make plastics mainly imported from China.
The chemical has been increasingly linked to sexual assaults and drug overdoses in Australia.
The importation was outlawed in March when new legislation kicked in. The opposition is turning the blowtorch on the Prime Minister over the saga that has seen dozens of hardened foreign criminals keep their visas. Peter Dutton claims the direction relied on in those cases was ordered by Anthony Albanese to please New Zealand.
With the Immigration Minister on the ropes now taking aim at the top.
Why did this weak and incompetent Prime Minister put his close and sycophantic relationship with Jacinda Ardern ahead of the safety of Australians?
Attacking over this meeting just 2 months after his election, agreeing to soften Australia's migration laws through Direction 99, so New Zealand criminals who'd long lived in Australia weren't automatically sent home. The Prime Minister arguing the change merely extended the impact of others made by coalition governments like Direction 90.
Direction 90 talked of a higher level of tolerance for criminals who've lived in the Australian community for most of their lives.
But Direction 99, introduced by Immigration Minister Andrew Giles, had a profound impact, reaching far beyond New Zealand, leading to dozens of hardened criminals from a range of countries having their deportations overturned in the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, including murderers, rapists, pedophiles. That direction now being urgently rewritten.
We've got to get it right. We've got to get it in place quickly, but it's got to be effective.
The change in tactics taking this controversy into dangerous new territory for the government. The opposition trying to put Anthony Albanese in centre frame.
Jacinda Ardern played him like a fiddle.
The Prime Minister was the architect of Direction 99. He did it as a commitment to Jacinda Ardern. He's put our country at risk.
All the anger's there in just one question. The anger, the abuse.
And it seems there's much more to come.
Let's go live to Mark Riley at Parliament. Mark, how damaging could this now get for the Prime Minister?
Well, very damaging, Mark. The focus is now turning to him, and in these moments, voters look very closely at their Prime Ministers to see whether they can trust them, whether they're being straight with them or whether they're just another slippery politician. How Anthony Albanese handles this controversy will have long-term repercussions for him, his leadership and the government's fortunes. Mark.
Mark Riley in Canberra. Thank you. Nines and Battles CEO Mike Sneesby still has his job tonight, surviving a marathon board meeting about the handling of sexual harassment allegations against former news boss Darren Wick. Serena Andaloro is at Nines headquarters in North Sydney. Serena, the board is standing behind him.
That's right, Mark. After a 5-hour meeting, the board released a statement confirming its full support for Mike Sneesby and announcing some new measures to drive cultural change at Nine. An email saying it's important we all acknowledge the trauma some of you have experienced and thanking those who have come forward with the courage they have shown. Anonymous staffers accused Darren Wick of drunken and inappropriate behaviour. There will now be an external review, a dedicated hotline to report sexual harassment, a company-wide survey and sexual harassment training. Now, Darren Wick left in March, reportedly with a near $1 million payout, Mark.
Serena Andaloro in North Sydney. Thank you. The future of free sport on TV and streaming in Australia is back in the spotlight, with the Greens attempting to amend the Albanese government's bill. The proposed laws currently favour foreign-owned streaming companies over Australian broadcasters.
Half of Australians are going to be locked out of watching sport for free. If you have a smart television, if you watch sport or television on your phone.
The Greens' changes would protect free digital streaming access for Australian audiences. We have a much better picture tonight of what happened on board that Singapore Airlines flight that was nearly shaken out of the sky last week, and it's terrifying. The first report has been released confirming the aircraft was pushed to the brink of disaster and was lucky not to break up in mid-air.
It all happened in the blink of an eye.
Like you just jumped off a building.
The whole plane was shuddering.
And the first report from investigators shows just how close the Boeing 777 came to disaster.
The report was dramatic.
The plane's black box and voice recorder have revealed that when it hit the turbulence, it had what's called an uncommanded jump in altitude. It went up. So the automatic pilot reacted by pushing the nose down and increasing the speed. It was a violent correction, and the moment all hell broke loose on board.
The 777 did really well to survive it.
Passengers would have felt a breakneck change in G-force, from negative 1.5 G to positive 1.5 G within 4 seconds. From cruising at 37,362 feet, we now know the jetliner plunged 178 feet or 54 metres in less than 5 seconds. That's less than the length of the Boeing 777 itself and nowhere near the kilometres first reported. But this likely resulted in the occupants who were not belted up to become airborne.
It is truly monumental forces happening to the aircraft. The aircraft was stressed to its limit.
One expert said it was like putting an egg in a metal box and shaking it violently. Miley Hogan, 7 News.
Friends of a couple killed in a high-speed crash in Greenacre say they were warned the motorbike they were on was too powerful for their level of experience. Today, riders returned to the scene, remembering the pair as thrill seekers.
Renowned for her skills, loved for her smile,
she was such a bubbly, effervescent character.
Doe Choi made her mark in the golfing world, going pro at just 21. Her coach is shattered. He won't see her play again.
It's just such a tragic waste of so much talent.
Doe also loved motorcycles.
She loves a thrill.
The 24-year-old was on the back of boyfriend William Brown's bike during a night ride on Tuesday when they collided with a car. They didn't survive. William's bike was too powerful for his provisional licence and he shouldn't have been carrying a passenger.
I'm like, it is kind of fast for you. Just be careful.
Friends paid their respects at the crash scene today.
Please take this as caution. You never know who's around the corner.
The motorcycle group has now set up a fundraiser to cover the cost of Doe and Will's funerals. Their families have been invited to join a special ride-along next week to pay tribute to the couple by doing something they both loved. Doe's family has told 7 News her presence was a blessing to all who knew her.
I feel for Mum as a mum. I really feel for her.
Annie Puller, 7 News.
A parliamentary inquiry into the Rozelle interchange has toured the Troubled Road project to experience the traffic gridlock firsthand. Its final public hearing was told the original design of WestConnex was never meant to pass through Rozelle.
To add a northern connection to WestConnex to facilitate connection ultimately to the Western Harbour Tunnel.
Ferguson. The committee will now prepare a report for the state government. His career began as a teenager and ended in his 90s. Tonight, Bob Rogers is being remembered as a legend of radio, not just for his remarkable innings, but also his character, the Mr. Nice Guy of the airwaves. He was 97.
He became history reporting history.
Another girl's fainted.
The fifth Beatle, they called Bob Rogers, the bespectacled superstar whose career started before World War II ended.
He really was a legend. There's not one criticism of him.
One of the all-time great radio broadcasters, an icon, no doubt about it.
I just love doing what I do.
And he did it for 8 decades. Melbourne radio, then Sydney, then the world, with exclusive access to the Fab Four.
Always good for a gag is John, you know. What do you expect to do in Hong Kong? Well, Bob.
Incredible 4 or 5 weeks of Beatlemania.
The only way to get an American hit to air first back then was to wait by the docks for that precious vinyl, then rush it to studio.
And that's how I really built up my career.
He launched the careers of other Aussie legends too.
I'm a pub with no beer.
An unlikely sex symbol who posed naked for Cleo and hosted a national TV show.
Make this a Christmas he'll never forget.
But radio was his first love and it loved him.
It's amazing when I think of it. I wonder how I did it.
Bob Rogers once allowed the F-bomb to drop on air to get himself sacked. In the 90s, he then signed a lifetime deal with 2CH.
Some woman who loves Tom Jones and me.
Retiring there at 92, old hatchets buried.
He and I were at cross purposes on occasions, but he was a very decent human being, Bob Rogers, and I'm sorry that he's dead.
It's been overwhelming. It's time to say good night, sweetheart, the last time.
Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
New housing figures have delivered more bad news, with building approvals falling nationwide. It comes as we learn more about the state government's new housing targets and where building booms are expected. Taylor Aiken explains.
Mark, in raw numbers, the Hills Shire will see the biggest change. Under the old 5-year target, they were expecting at least 8,500 new homes. Under the new target, that grows to more than 23,000. The Blacktown Council area jumps from 16,500 to well over 21,000. The Northern Beaches will almost double construction, going from 3,000 to just under 6,000. Wallara will almost quadruple from 500 to just under 2,000. The only council area reversing the trend is Parramatta. Its old target was 22,500. The new target means 3,000 fewer homes. Critics say without penalties for councils, these targets are just numbers on a screen.
There's a tradie shortage, construction materials are really expensive, and residential development is hard to attract financing.
While some mayors have slammed the timeframe of 5 years as unrealistic.
They're targets without a plan. These targets are unreasonable and they're unfeasible.
The government has ruled out penalising councils for missing those targets, but can appoint a planning administrator if they continuously fall short, though the minister says that's the absolute last resort.
Time to check the weather now with Angie Asimus. Angie, a very warm one today.
Mark, temperatures were more typical of late spring. The only indicator that it is indeed cooling down was a decent fog. This was Penrith this morning. Didn't last long though once that sunshine started warming things up. By about the middle of the day, we reached a top of 24 degrees in the CBD and our west. That is 4 above the city's long-term average. A fairly significant change to that pattern is fast approaching. Warnings are already in place for damaging winds across the state's southeast, as highlighted in yellow there. The reason for that is a cold front tracking across New South Wales. Ahead of it, we are seeing those gusty northwesterlies. Behind it, rain. That is due to reach Sydney by mid-morning tomorrow. Details on how much we're likely to record coming up soon, Mark.
Righto, Angie, thank you. Sydney families stressed out, and it's more than just the cost of living. After the break, a new survey reveals the biggest household hurdles. An alleged A-League match fixer in court as police get ready to charge more players. A street artist and the story behind this packing room winner, that's later. A heartwarming story, the siblings reunited after more than 80 years apart, and a heat-seeking drone that saved a man lost in Sydney bushland. Welcome back. A new survey of working families has found Australian parents are seriously stressed out juggling work and childcare commitments. Major contributors include the cost of living and, for many women, their unfair share of the housework.
2 kids and a mortgage. Working parents Emily and Daniel.
busy.
Going from one thing to the next, always trying to balance it all and try to have it all.
It's incredibly hard to fit in our own wellbeing and self-care with 2 kids.
A new survey of working parents finds in 5 years there have been few improvements.
Results are stark, they're disappointing, and really perhaps not surprising.
Parents' stress levels are markedly higher than 2019, both up 23%. The cost of living, say working mums.
The worry of looking after my son, childcare is ridiculously expensive.
Interest rate hikes obviously just are a big influence on stress levels.
Working mums still do nearly double the load of household and caring duties than men.
Really, caring is still seen as a woman's job.
I definitely think that I do my part.
Women are more likely to use flexible work arrangements, men more reluctant to take time off, and half of all respondents worried favouring their families might see their commitment to work questioned.
Parent groups say the aim should be to make Australia the best place in the world to raise a child, but that may have to start with turning around our dwindling birth rate.
The Treasurer would like to see it.
They want us to have more babies, but they don't want to support us going back to work.
Chris Marr, 7 News.
2 more Sydney soccer players have been implicated in an alleged betting scandal that has rocked the A-League. Macarthur midfielder Kieran Backus was the first to appear in court today, with police indicating there'll be at least 5 players charged.
It's the controversial yellow card.
It's pretty needless.
That landed the Macarthur FC midfielder in court.
Kieran, were you deliberately manipulating yellow cards?
Kieran Backus is one of 3 players allegedly involved in a betting scandal. Police say he and teammate Clayton Lewis were recruited by captain Ulises Davila to be penalised for payment.
Were you told to push that player?
Detectives say they were instructed by gamblers in South America who allegedly earned hundreds of thousands of dollars in winnings.
Was there any influence from overseas?
3 players were charged, police seeking to extradite a 4th, with a 5th also under investigation.
That is now their 16th yellow card, way more than any other side in the competition.
Backus was the first to face court.
The 32-year-old's lawyer told the court it's circumstances where he's a highly competitive, aggressive player. He also requested that he be exempt from his next court appearance when he faces the Downing Centre in June.
Football Australia has suspended all 3 players pending court proceedings. The alleged conduct, they say, has no place in the game. Bill Hogan, 7 News.
A drone equipped with heat-seeking technology has been used to find a man missing in bushland in Sydney's northwest. Police conducted a ground search at Pitt Town last night with no success. Then a fire and rescue crew launched their drone, locating him around midnight. The man was in good health and was guided to safety. Feeling sick and falling over up next, what happened on a Jetstar plane that sent people to hospital? A health warning about popular vitamins doing more harm than good. Spectacular but dangerous fountains of lava shoot high in the air. Cheers to that, we take a look inside Sydney's Festival of Beer.
And ahead in sport, injuries and Origin open the door for an emotion-charged Panthers debut.
Welcome back. 4 Jetstar cabin crew have been taken to hospital after being overcome by fumes on a plane that landed at Cairns Airport this morning. The women all felt nauseous and had headaches, one flight attendant needing another's help to stop falling over. Jetstar says no passengers were affected and engineers were called to check the aircraft. The ABC's managing director says he wishes senior political reporter Laura Tingle never made the comment that Australia is a racist country. David Anderson admits the claim did not meet the public broadcaster's standards, but says Tingle deserves to keep her job.
Under fire.
That is a disgraceful statement.
The ABC's managing director, David Anderson, grilled
Ms Tingle has expressed regret. That was a mistake.
over these comments from his chief political correspondent.
We are a racist country, let's face it, we always have been.
I'm not embarrassed by it. I wish it hadn't happened.
Laura Tingle says she was responding to this.
The great Australian dream of home ownership has turned into a nightmare. The government has brought in an additional 923,000 migrants in just 2 years.
Laura Tingle's outed herself now as
somebody who is a partisan. She's a Green/Labor supporter.
Claiming Australia has a record of racism.
I believe we are in danger of being swamped by Asians.
I wasn't saying every Australian is a racist, but we clearly have an issue with racism.
You definitely get lower jobs than what you're qualified for just because you're an immigrant.
In a statement, ABC's director Justin Stevens said Laura Tingle's comments lacked the context, balance and supporting information of her work and didn't meet editorial standards.
Should Laura Tingle leave the ABC?
I don't believe so, Senator.
Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
We have a health warning now about a growing danger that could be hidden in plain sight. There are fears many Australians are overdosing on vitamins. Doctors are urging us to check the fine print and monitor for symptoms.
63-year-old Kerry McInerney thought she was doing a good thing for her health, taking weight loss shakes and vitamins, but it was the beginning of a nightmare.
It's really hard to talk about because it was really scary at the time.
She had cramps and difficulty breathing.
I thought I was going to die during that time.
A successful singer and songwriter, Kerry documented her journey in and out of hospital.
It's really hard.
Eventually discovering her weight loss products contained 12 times the recommended dose of vitamin B6, causing a condition called peripheral neuropathy.
Tingling or pins and needles in the hands or the feet.
Former GP Mary Buchanan was also unwittingly overdosing on B6 in her magnesium supplement.
Affecting my walking so much that I could barely walk 100 metres.
She didn't know B6 can accumulate.
The B6 is possibly coming into somebody's intake in multiple ways.
Like energy drinks, cereals and protein shakes. While the TGA recently halved the allowed maximum daily dose of B6 in products to 100 milligrams for adults, peripheral neuropathy in some can occur at doses of less than 50 milligrams.
Not everything that you buy over the counter is free from risks.
Katrina Blowers, 7 News.
The jury has begun deliberations in Donald Trump's hush money trial. They talk for 4.5 hours before being sent home for the day. Even without courtroom drama, the former president was fuming.
Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged.
Trump must remain at the courthouse while the jury's out, keeping him off the campaign trail. A state of emergency has been declared in Iceland after a volcano roared to life for the 5th time in 6 months. The danger is real, but the show is spectacular, with lava sent 50 metres into the air along a 3-kilometre crack in the earth. It comes hot on the heels of an 8-week-long eruption on the same peninsula. If you love a beer or two, but traditional brews are becoming a bit boring, it might be time to try a more unconventional blend. That's the innovation now on tap at a festival in the city this weekend, promising plenty of bold and offbeat flavours.
There are lagers and ales, then there's this.
Dark chocolate, marshmallow, biscuit. It's been nitro charged.
In fact, if you can think of it, it's probably in a beer, this Gabs Festival, the Great Australian Beer Spectacular.
It's our version of cereal for dinner, and it's a 6.5% oat cream IPA. It is delicious.
Armed with thousands of kegs, 150 brewers are here at the convention centre fighting the rising head of Australia's beer duopoly, with no other choice but to innovate.
Choc orange porter. I added about 5 kilos of cacao powder. It's about 55 litres of pure blood orange.
This year there are 120 new beers, 500 beers all up. Some say no single person could possibly taste them all, but with a clear mind, empty stomach and positive attitude, you never know. The headline act, the world's oldest brewery, Stefan, established in the year 1040, surviving on a simple philosophy in a menagerie of microbes.
Just stick to your guns and look for consistency in what you're doing.
First brewed by monks in a monastery, manna from heaven. Tom Saker, 7 News.
From street art to famous faces, just ahead, the packing room's choice as the Archibald finalists are revealed. How to avoid the latest Australia Post scams. Meet the Australian woman who tracked down her brother after 86 years.
And soon in sport, the Hammer fit and firing and ready to target some Blues rookies.
Tonight's edition of The Nightly is out now. Australia's only digital newspaper to drop nightly. And it's free. Delivered to your pocket every weeknight. Spend your night wisely. Free at thenightly.com.au.
Welcome back. Australia Post has revealed almost 3/4 of the population have been targeted by fake delivery scams. Its research also found more than 1/4 of people admit they've fallen victim to dodgy emails or phone messages.
Think about the questions you're being asked, and if in any doubt whatsoever, hang up or do not click.
It's urging customers to use the Australia Post app. With cans of spray paint and one of Australia's brightest talents as his subject, a street artist has claimed the curtain-raising award of the Archibald Prize. The portrait of rapper Baker Boy, chosen by the Packing Room, is one of dozens of pieces now in the running for the top prize.
From the brush comes the bold, bright and best of portraiture.
From sports stars, musicians, fashion designers.
A lineup of distinguished figures including this Wild Wild Wiggle and a floating Julian Assange. 57 Archibald finalists from 1,000 entrants.
There's a lot of people that are wanting to say something. And that's what artists are picking.
The first top honour to street artist Matt Adnate, winning the Packing Room Prize for his depiction of rapper Baker Boy.
It's done with about 90% spray paint. I never thought that this would be something that I could achieve.
I was very much captivated by Baker Boy's gaze. You can see the land painted within his eyes.
This year, a record number of Indigenous entrants for the Wynne and Sulman Prizes too.
The attention now turns to the announcement of the Archibald Prize next Friday, when the trusted panel of judges will peruse the exhibition the day of, making a decision too difficult to predict.
But often I have seen it change from everyone agreeing to one to everyone agreeing to the other. It's a really incredible process to watch.
Open at the Art Gallery from June 8. Angelique Opie, 7 News.
Time now for a check on finance with Gemma Acton. Gemma, the markets can't seem to catch a break.
No, Mark, just like last week, this one has been a gloomy one for the ASX 200, with local shares still reeling from yesterday's higher than hoped inflation numbers and a poor session on Wall Street overnight. The Aussie dollar has lost its footing, dropping back beneath 66 US cents, while iron ore keeps edging a little higher every day. And the 10 richest Australians are together worth more than $300 billion, with mining magnates dominating a list headed up by Gina Rinehart. The co-founders of technology unicorns Atlassian and Canva made the top 10, as did property developer Harry Triguboff and cardboard king Anthony Pratt. Mark.
Gemma, thank you. 2 siblings with a lifetime of catching up to do. Still to come, a heartbreaking separation leads to an incredible reunion more than 80 years later. How Marjorie tracked down her long-lost brother. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News. But now Mel is here with Sport, and Mel, a sight for sore eyes at the Blues camp.
Yeah, there was, Fergo. He sat out training yesterday, but new Blues halfback Nicho Hynes was all in today, working with Jerome Luai on a halves combination that began many years ago. All your Origin news is up next. And a French wildcard tames Chopu on a day when history was made at the Olympic break. Welcome back. Years before they were NRL stars, Nicho Hynes and Jerome Luai were already working on their New South Wales combination without even knowing it. Luai opened up today about their friendship of more than a decade that started as school kids.
A sight Blues fans will be relieved to see. Nicho Hynes with boots on, training with the Blues for the first time.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was concerned. I think we were all aware of it and knew that he was coming into this camp with a plan.
4 days into camp, today was the first chance for Hynes and Luai to test the state's latest halves combination, but it's not as new as you might think.
Back in the day, I've had a fair bit to do with Nicho, and he hasn't really changed much. He's still that beachy kind of vibe kind of guy.
Michael Maguire's halves combination began more than a decade ago when Hynes and Luai were playing state touch football together as school kids.
We're actually pretty close. We formed a pretty good relationship back then, so it was good to kick that off again.
Years later, the Panthers star has found himself in the leadership group, and it's tough times that's moulded him into the player Maguire needs.
I think not being in that game 3 side last year gave me a bit of time to reflect and think back of what I could do better and be better at.
Maguire is getting to know his players a little more intimately here at the Blue Mountains, and that's helped him come to the decision to make Isaiah Yeo vice-captain.
He's extremely hungry as a player in representing his state, New South Wales, and you just hear it in his voice when he talks about it, so yeah, it's been really nice to be around him.
In the Blue Mountains, Jaleesa Rapps, 7 News.
If there's any weakness in the new look Blues three-quarter line, the hammer is ready to hit it. The Flying Dolphin Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow shapes as a daunting proposition for one of our backline debutants.
Michael Maguire's centre wing pairings remain a closely guarded secret, but there's every chance that at least one of his three-quarter line debutantes, Joseph Suali'i and Zach Lomax, will line up on the same edge as Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. The hammer feels back to his best after a hamstring injury.
Running at top speed and just getting the hammer going, having those 2 games under my belt, it's brought me back to where I want to be.
That's a chilling prospect. A key figure in last year's series win, Tabuai-Fidow says he feels even more lethal when he dons a maroon jersey.
Coming into camp just as a big confidence boost to myself. I'm coming in to rub shoulders with the players we got here.
Doing their best blue steel in Blatchy's Blues wigs. The Sky Blues can wrap up the first ever 3-game women's series with a win in Newcastle next Thursday. Teammates say the star of Game 1, Jamie Chapman, is only getting better.
She's just an out-and-out athlete. She's 6 foot something and she's not slight in build either. She's got a lot of muscle and a lot of power behind her.
Nick Markham, 7 News.
Origin and injuries have decimated the Panthers, but with adversity comes opportunity. Preston Ricky and Trent Toilor will debut against the Dragons on Saturday. 26-year-old Ricky couldn't hold back the tears when he told his nana.
What up, mate? Come on, debut this week.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dragons. Just came in.
That video struck a chord with teammates.
It gives you goosebumps and sort of reminds you back to your debut.
I had chills and brought a tear to my eye, so it means a lot to these boys.
With Nathan Cleary and Isaiah Yeo missing, James Fisher-Harris will captain the Panthers. Tony Gustafsson says there are only 4 spots left up for grabs in the Matildas Olympic squad. The Aussie coach has already chosen 14 of the 18 players he'll take to Paris. Gustafsson has to cut 5 from the squad with back-to-back friendlies against China, the last chance to impress.
To be honest, the worst part of being a head coach is that you have to tell someone at the end of this week that you're not going to the Olympics.
There's no such thing as a friendly.
They face off in Adelaide tomorrow night before playing at Accor Stadium on Monday. French Open queen Iga Swiatek is keen to see more respect from fans. The 2-time reigning champion fought back from the brink to defeat Naomi Osaka in a second-round classic, winning the final games of the deciding set. But Swiatek was unhappy with fans yelling during rallies.
When you scream something during the rally or right before the return, it's really, really hard to be focused.
Carlos Alcaraz was pushed to 4 sets by Dutchman Jesper de Jong. Oz Open champion Jannik Sinner crushed Richard Gasquet in straight sets. Tyler Wright and Molly Picklum found out the hard way what it will take to win Olympic gold at Chopu later this year. Both Aussies wiped out heavily in quarter-final losses at the Tahiti Pro. Tatiana Weston-Webb became the first woman to score a perfect 10 at the famous but fearsome break.
To turn the heat. Wow, what are we watching, Flick?
That was absolutely insane. You could just see how excited she is, like splashing.
The perfect ride was not enough to prevent a semi-final exit, though, for the Brazilian. Weston Webb lost to eventual winner Vahin Fierro, a French wildcard who now looms as a possible gold medal contender. I'll still reckon the Aussies will be favourites. A nice warm-up for them. See it first and come back and dominate later.
That ride was worth an 11, I reckon.
It was epic.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Long-lost siblings have been reunited for the first time in more than 80 years. They were separated just as the Second World War was breaking out, triggering a decades-long search for reconnection.
Hello, Marge. We now I can see you well.
I can see you too.
Marjorie Hamilton hadn't seen her youngest brother for 86 years until today.
Overwhelmed. Overwhelmed and shocked.
Yes. Separated as children, the siblings now live more than 1,700 kilometres away. 94-year-old Marjorie in Melbourne and 90-year-old Ted Clissold on the Gold Coast.
Few more wrinkles than what I had, though.
I think we all have.
When their father died in a horse riding accident in 1939, Ted and his 3 brothers were placed in a Salvation Army boys' home. Ted was just 4. Years later, Ted's adopted family tracked down Marjorie via Ancestry.com.
Have this family connection, not just for Marjorie and Ted, but also for the next generation too.
At the same time, Marjorie's daughter Kathy had been searching too.
Happy tears. I'm overwhelmed.
Marjorie and Ted are now the only surviving siblings. Both are in good health, great-grandparents living independently. And after this long-awaited reunion, there's more conversations ahead. The 2 families with years of memories to catch up on.
And that's Uncle Ken.
Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
Wonderful. Now Angie's back with the forecast. Ange, that's about it for the sunshine.
Mark, a significant change is in store for us tomorrow. We have cold, wet and windy conditions ahead. All the latest weather warnings are next. Tomorrow on Sunrise, the condition affecting over 1 in 3 women and even more men. The affordable new treatments to fight hair loss.
Plus the $5 million game show giveaway, how you could score the largest single payout in TV history.
See you in the morning.
Tonight's 7 News headlines. The government has revealed major social media reforms aimed at keeping children safe online. A mother has defended her daughter who's accused of murder, saying she was the victim of domestic violence. A mobile phone found in a police search has been confirmed as belonging to murdered Victorian woman Samantha Murphy. And this portrait of rapper Baker Boy has won the Archibald's coveted Packing Room Prize. And here's Angie with Sydney's weather.
Thank you, Mark. That is about it for the sunshine for a while. Today was certainly a real treat. Not only was it fine, but unseasonably warm too. 24 degrees the top in the CBD. Some centres even made it to 25, including Mascot and Cronulla and Parramatta. Apart from an early fog, skies were pretty clear today. The only showers recorded were at Mona Vale and North Parramatta. Less than a millimetre in that though. High pressure has been fueling this decent run of settled conditions, but this afternoon that started giving way to a cold front entering the west of our state, bringing plenty of cloud with it. We have warnings in place for damaging winds over the southwest, highlighted in yellow. Tomorrow, that system will track right across New South Wales, bringing strong winds followed by rain. Warnings for damaging winds cover the southern tablelands, ACT, south coast and southwest slopes. Around the capitals, Brisbane, a shower or two, 25 degrees. Canberra to see that change with rain and a top of 16. Melbourne remains settled though, 17 forecast. Hobart, gusty showers, 16. Adelaide, showers and 17 for a maximum. Perth, those showers start to ease as the system tracks further away to the east, 22, the forecast top. Statewide, there are some widespread areas of rain with moderate falls about the western side of the ranges, slopes and plains. Areas of rain will be scattered elsewhere, extending to the east and the north later in the day. Even a dusting of snow on the Alps above 1,500 metres. The metro region will be cloudy to start, winds northerly ahead of showers developing from late morning. Totals won't be heavy tomorrow, it's just the start of this shift, and tops still quite pleasant, mostly making it into the low 20s. On the water, northerly winds to reach 30 knots at first, tending northwesterly to 25 knots in the afternoon. Strong winds do span our waters from the Macquarie coast right down to Eden. Back in the CBD, a low of 15 degrees expected tonight, so a little bit milder with that increased cloud cover. Top of 22 degrees forecast. Showers will develop from late morning, but we're only expecting a few millimetres. It does really set in over the weekend though. Decent falls for Saturday, especially Sunday. Tops staying in the teens. Then that wet weather will ease back to showers for Monday. Fine weather to return for Tuesday and Wednesday, but it doesn't do much to warm things up. Single digit lows and tops in the teens right throughout the working week. So Mark, it's going to be a pretty grey weekend.
Indoors, I reckon.
I think so.
Thanks, Angie. Before we go, here's a story we have for you tomorrow night.
In 7 News.
Yes!
treating back pain as child's play. Relief without the surgery.
It's paid off. I'm wonderful now.
The high-tech help giving Aussies their lives back.
Got them to start thinking about pain differently.
Our exclusive medical report, 7 News at 6.
That is 7 News for this Thursday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening. I'm Mark Ferguson from all the team. I hope you have a great night.
Stream 7 News live and on demand on 7plus and stay informed on 7news.com.au. Nobody knows news better.